Hello YouTube! This video is part of my build series for the 3D printable Star Destroyer bridge diorama. I purchased this massive set of 3D printable files from Charveys3D for my 3.75-inch Star Wars figures. I will include the link in the description below. This is the 5th video of my Star Destroyer bridge build. If you haven't already watched the first 4 videos, you can find them in my playlist that I have linked to in the comments below. In this video, I will show you how to break down the base coat by providing variations in the tone, how to hand paint the details, how to airbrush the floors, and how to assemble all the smaller pieces together. And now what I want to do is add some tonal variation. So I don't want it to be this, just a solid this color. So to do that, I will use various shades of gray. So I'm going to use 3. And these are various shades that should complement the basic color. So I'm going to start with XF82 from Tamiya. Then we're going to do XF25 and finish with XF80 for the highlights. So I'm going to take an airbrush, and I'm going to use my airbrush for the first one. So XF82, shake it up. It's a brand new can. This is also, by the way, what others have recommended for any Death Star walls or dioramas is Tamiya XF82 if you're using Tamiya paints. So I'm using a toothpick to stir it. And I'll take it out with a pipette. So what I want to do is get 2 milliliters. And because I'm using an airbrush, I need to thin it. To thin Tamiya, you go half. 1 part paint and 1 part X20A thinner. Since I'm using their acrylics paints, this is the thinner for it. So I'm going to get the same 2 milliliters and I put it in this cup. And I'll stir it again. So for airbrushing, here's my compressor. I'm using a double action airbrush. Double means when I push it down, you get just air, and when you bring it back, the more you bring it back, the more paint you get. So we're going to pour the paint we just mixed into the cup. And then I'm just going to spray the main surfaces. Now that color is very similar to the base coat, which is what we want, so it'll be hard to see, but from my view, what's happening is now we're getting some tonal variation. Starting to look more 3D, starting to look more like substantial. Now I'm not going to worry about the floors because those are going to be painted with gloss paint. Because on a Star Destroyer, it's a military establishment, they'd have heavily shone and polished floors. But I'm getting pretty much all the rest of the areas. When I'm finished, I'll pour out the remainder, and to clean my airbrush, I'll use shop towels. It's very important to clean it, because if any of the paint dries, the airbrush isn't going to work anymore. So you can clean it like this. And then my trick is I use Lysol all-purpose cleaner, And you can spray that in there. At this point, I've blocked in the paint for all the main panels. And I used Tamiya XF80, that's the light gray here. I used Tamiya XF24 dark gray, that's the dark gray on these ones. And then I used a lot of flat black, and that was Tamiya XF1, so everything else is black. Now, when I block them in, I make a lot of mistakes. So I get some overspray. I get overpaint in some areas into the background color. And that's okay, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a Nic Pro 4-0 liner paintbrush. So there's a specific liner. It's used to make lines, but it's nice and pointy and long. And I'm going to use this color here, which is very close to my base coat, XF75. And we're going to paint in all the mistakes. So I'm shaking it all up. I'm going to put on my glasses. Dip in the liner, and then I'm just going to go in and touch up all the little mistakes. So luckily it covers well, so you don't have to be 100% accurate when you block in your main colors, which is nice because it can be very stressful. So what I like to do is you brew a nice fresh cup of coffee, take your time, and you go over all the little spots that you made a mistake. When I was in the middle of painting my details, I had just finished painting the black, and I'm cleaning my brush, and I thought this would make a good wash. So what I did was I kind of painted it, the dirty thinner, in some of the spots that were recessed up here, and it turned out really well. The reason you can do this, because this is full thinner, is because all of this paint has been dry for 2 weeks at this point, because otherwise this might start to dissolve the paint and all the beautiful work you'd already done. But it worked. So I kept going, and I actually did all the little recesses and down here as well, because I had the thinner anyway, and it worked out great, I think. I've started painting all the computer areas on the upper deck, and I did this top row here, and now I'm going to do the other side. And to do that, I flipped the entire thing on its side, on its back basically, and I'm going to paint in there. Now, it's pretty hard to paint in there, and there's no way I'm going to be able to do it with any quality if I just do the regular way. So in this case, I'm diluting my flat black paint in half so that it runs and goes into the crevices and things. And what I'm going to do is I just drop it, kind of dab it into the recesses. And then I'll load up my brush. Again, I'm using the liner brush. And I'm just going to dab it into the recesses. Luckily, these are all recesses. And see, it's flowing down the road. And if I make a mistake and any of it gets in the on the outside edges, I'll just touch them up after. Now this is why I tried to place the model flat, because I don't want it to all pool too much at the bottom. But I'm just... Ooh, that's a big... So I'm just dabbing the paint. You don't even have to go into the total you can do it down the middle, and it flows towards the edges. And if it doesn't, you just tab it a bit. So luckily these are all recessed areas, so we're able to do this because you just dab the paint into the recesses and let it flow, and for the most part it stays in the spot where you want it to be. So we'll just keep going and we'll do all the rest while we have it set up. Here I have finished painting all the computers and detailed bits. Now, there was no way that I was going to be able to get in here and paint that computer wall. So what I did was, I went into Blender and I printed off a second version of it, and then I painted that, and it was a lot easier to paint like just on the ground in front of me where I could move it, and then I'm going to glue that in over the top. I went into Blender and imported the two pieces that had the back wall computer, and then I went to edit mode. I selected the pieces of the computer that I wanted, pressed Shift D to duplicate, and brought them out. And I did the same with the bottom, and then what I was left with was, here it is, the one I made, and I just cleaned it up, extended it back, and then saved it as an STL and printed just that piece. So now it's time to work on the floors, and the floors are going to be glossy. But what I'm going to do now is do a matte varnish coat over the whole thing at this point to seal everything up, and then I'll start on the floors. Here I have taped off with painter's tape all of the walls that are nearest to the floors. And then I'm going to go outside with my airbrush and I'm going to spray the floors with Tamiya XF75 IGN gray. This will be a little bit of a darker gray, and it will also, because I did all the tonal variation, this will be a solid coat of just IGN gray. Here is what the finished floors look like. And finally, I'm going to seal everything up with Rust-Oleum Matte Clear. Here is the finished model. I have placed all the data pit computers and chairs on the floor, and I used a hot glue gun to apply small amounts of glue to the feet of my retro collection bounty hunters so they don't fall over. But we aren't finished yet. In my next video, I will show you how we can fill up the data pit with vintage style figures that we print and paint ourselves from Funky McClunky. Thank you for watching my build series video for the 3D printable Star Destroyer bridge diorama from Charveys3D. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. If you have any other ideas or tips for how to complete any of the steps that I've shown, please leave us a comment below.